I'm going to discuss today. Hello, I'm Matthias Kloss. I'm going to discuss today why it is important to have eternal virtue and the eternal morality for college life and beyond. The need for eternal virtue and morality in post-secondary education. First, you must accept the basic universal principle of universal morality, and you must remain open to the following ideas. You need not be a Christian to understand this, though it does help. The practicality of these virtues will aid you greatly in education and living your life in general. We all appeal to a certain morality in all arguments because we all have a basic understanding that goes deeper than flesh and blood that goes deeper than flesh and blood, that we feel, that we see, that we know to be true. As C.S. Lewis put it, we know a line is straight because we've seen a crooked line. Christianity put these virtues in writing along with the universal morality, but this morality is obvious in our reality, taking into account the idea that murder is simply wrong. We all know deep down that it is. These virtues ground a person to a standard necessary for college and life after it, because you cannot live life without virtue and without a moral compass. The universal morality is in a nutshell the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourselves an idol. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day and by keeping it holy. Honor thy father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. You shall not covet. Now, you may be wondering, these mean in college life and life afterwards, don't be prideful. You are not a god. Remember, there is a higher power. Now, I'm going to proselytize here and tell you that there is a God who sent his only son, who died on the cross, and I serve by him. But also, you need to remember that you are not a god, and that your material well-beings will not, in the end, save you. Second, this transitions into the second one. Don't serve things there is more to life. Because material being, all that you want in the material world, cannot help you. It makes life comfortable for a time, but someday you shall die. And that's why we must consider the eternal truths, the eternal principle. And that is a decision that you must make on your own. But I'd like to encourage that you come to Christ and follow Christ wherever you will go. The third one says, temper your vocabulary. Yes, you have to temper your vocabulary in the way you speak, in the way you work, in the way you live. You have to temper your life in general. You also have to remember to not go out and attack your Creator. While you may not, you go, well, why don't you agree with, I don't agree that there is a Creator. All right, live as if there is a Creator, because you never want to find out that there is one. If you find out there isn't, it's not a big deal. If you don't, it could mean eternal torment. 4, take a day off to think about the eternal truths. Give yourself a break from work. We all toil. We all must toil diligently. But we also need to rest and rest our sorry bodies. We also need to think about our eternal truths. We must think about our faith, our spirit, our mind, to understand these truths and live by them. 5, remember your parents and take their advice. As honor your father and mother states you're to honor them because they gave birth to you and they gave you everything you need, hopefully. And you will say, well, what if someone who has terrible parents? I'm very sorry to hear that, and I hope that you will reconcile. But remember to honor your ancestors too. They gave you something. They gave us a society, a civilization. They gave us eternal morals. They gave us law and order. Though that is being torn apart currently, it must be remembered, even in times of struggle, division, and evil. Number 6, don't murder people. This will seem obvious, of course. I don't want to shoot somebody. I don't want to kill people. But we forget the even deeper ones. Today, as of December 17th, 2020, abortion is still legal in much of the Western world. Babies who are born at conception are still murdered to this day. And that is murder that we must stop. And that is a principle we must not forget. We have, and it has shown great decadence in our society since the 1960s, when abortion started to become common in the West. Number 7, don't cheat on your spouse. Adultery is a very dangerous thing. Marriage is important. That is something we forget in our society today. We believe that marriage is just love and love. Love is love and that anybody can do it. No. Marriage is marriage because it is done between a man and a woman because it creates children. And because if that relationship creates children, then you should not treat on that wife who can conceive your child, because it can have terrible effects on your children, including separation, divorce, and lack of parenting. Every child needs a father, that is a fact. But we forget that today, unfortunately. Number 8, don't steal or cheat on your tests. That's basic. Do not bear false witness in court. Do not lie to your boss. Do not lie to the law. Do not lie in general. There are many deep moral quandaries about this, but the simple part is easy. Don't break the law unless it is truly unjust, which I will cover in later parts. Next, don't lie or cheat. That restates the point. Don't eye others' possessions, as it can lead to evil. Coveting is one of the biggest and worst things you can do. This is not just from a Christian point of view, it's just a matter of principle. If you're constantly looking with lust upon the property of another man, or their wife, or their possessions, it can lead you to do many evil things, such as stealing, murder, adultery, and many other terrible things. This is why these are universal. Every society, since we've ever known there's a society, has had a set of moral law. While they would disagree on the amount of wives you can have, there at no point can you just sleep around with anybody at any given time. Every society has standards and they must hold to them. The cardinal virtues. These are essential virtues. 4 of the most important in a man's life, in a woman's life, in any human being's life. Prudence, justice, and fortitude, and temperance. Society cannot live without prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, and the other virtues I will cover today. Prudence, to be cautious and not rush into activity. For school and college in general, you cannot rush into an activity. You have to live. You have to do things diligently and patiently and prudentially. You have to be careful. You do not want to have an accident. You do not want to make a mistake, and you do not want to cause problems for yourself in later life. Justice in honest dealings in work. Schoolwork is very important. You have to be honest. You cannot cheat, lie, or steal. And if you do, by mistake or by foolish lack of judgment, you do steal or so on, the right thing to do and the just thing to do would be to turn yourself in. Say, I did this, I will take my punishment. This takes fortitude to stand by principle. Fortitude, or guts, is extremely important in any person's life. You have to be willing to stand on principle, especially the eternal virtue and the eternal universal morality that does not change and does not evolve. It remains the same no matter what century, and no matter what time. Temperance is important to maintain sobriety and be disciplined. Every human being must be disciplined. They must chasten their lusts. They must temper their drinking. They must temper their consumption. You cannot be a drunk. You cannot be a glutton. You must live disciplined. Don't stay up all night. Get the proper sleep. Early to bed, early to rise. All of these virtues are essential, combined with the 7 virtues that will be discussed, temperance being one of them. Prudence, as restated, do not rush into activities. This is detrimental to college work, to work in general, and to chores, and to life. This requires patience. You have to be careful, trusting, but hold out. Be willing to think. Think always. Consider your decisions before acting. And always act with prudence. Such as during this coronavirus, everybody is living in fear of a disease. Now, I will not deny nor state against that the coronavirus does not exist. But it is not the dangerous Ebola-like plague, end of the world disease that we thought it was. It is a very virulent virus. Yes, it spreads, and it's dangerous for a lot of people, for some people, particularly the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions. But those who are young, we should be fine. But we live not for. We have to be prudent in our manner. I will always state that masks are not essential and do not really work except in certain circumstances, such as when you are sick. If you have the disease, put on a mask so that we know to avoid you. That is a prudential, and proper way of handling the disease. You do not mask and torture the healthy, as they have not done anything wrong and they are not sick. If they are not sick, they can go about as normal. Now, there are preventative measures that they must take in prudence. Washing their hands, not sometimes giving space, avoiding people who are sick, and avoiding people who are quarantined. This applies to the college life too. You're young, you're usually healthy. You can take the prudential step. You can do the work that needs to be done. You have to be prudent in all the ways you live. This is always essential. Prudent in driving, prudent in whatever you do. But it doesn't apply to college life, in that you must be prudent in how you live. Justice. Be honest in your dealings and schoolwork. To repeat the point, when you do wrong, take your punishment. Don't pass the buck, as President Harry S. Truman once said. Follow the law, but not blindly. And remember the other virtues and universal morality in doing so. When I say follow the law, but not blindly, I return to the COVID policies. I am not some so-called science denier. I look at the science, I look at the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter state that this is a disease that's dangerous for some people, some demographics. I'm not going to say that we should not take any basic precautions like washing our hands and avoiding people who are sick. Not at all. But I'm also not going to stop living. We should not stop living normal lives. The reason why I say that we are not to follow these mandates is because they constantly unjustly move the goalposts. They are not living by their own justice. The people who push the lockdowns and push masking are the very people who break those lockdowns and masking orders the most. This is not me being an anti-science person or being anti-elderly or wanting to kill grandma, as many people have stated. It is a simple matter of justice. It is unjust to keep the healthy locked up and treated like they are diseased pockets of flesh when they are not doing anything wrong by just simply living their lives as we have for thousands of years with difference and changes. But we don't change. We are not made to wear masks. We never did wear masks until we just decided, because our public health leaders decided it, to do so as such. This applies to your schoolwork because you have to follow the rules. But if they are unjust towards you, such as in the case of Harvard, when they were discriminating against Asian Americans, that was wrong by affirmative action. And that was unjust, and they should not have followed. There is every rule to be followed, but if it is to be used by tyranny and to be used by unjust forces for an unjust reason, then there is no reason to follow. That's why you must remember the other virtues and the universal morality. Next, fortitude must be combined with humility, and it must be combined with all virtue. You have to be willing to admit you are wrong at times. I've been wrong about how things are supposed to go. I thought that the coronavirus would not be a big deal, that people would just go on living their lives, and that they would deal with it, and that we would deal with it as it goes. I was wrong. Everybody was far more scared and broken than I thought. You have to say what's right. Now, I could be wrong. There's always a chance. So I listen to others, but I'm also not going to never say anything. I am going to state my opinion, and I'm going to state my belief. I believe that there's an objective moral standard, and I believe that masks do not work. Let me rephrase that. I believe that masks have their uses, but not in the current way of use. I stand by that there's an objective morality, that men and women are inherently different biologically, and men cannot be women. This is what you must do. It takes fortitude, but fortitude must not be turned into pridefulness, which is why it must be combined with humility and being willing to listen to other views. The 7 virtues are as follows: chastity, temperance, charity, diligence, patience, kindness, and humility. First, chastity. Chastity is useful in your college life and post-secondary education because it helps you prevent venereal diseases such as various sexually transmitted diseases and unplanned pregnancies. Chastity is required to avoid pornography. You need to be willing to keep your body in check because you will desire things that are wrong. And you do not want to wind up being addicted to pornography. It can hurt your marriage, it can hurt your life, and it can hurt your studies. You must strengthen your willpower, and practicing chastity and maintaining it and learning it and tempering yourself by it are extremely important to maintain your chastity and maintain a good college life and a good life afterwards. Temperance. Temperance is very important. You must know your limits. People think temperance, they believe, oh, you can't drink. Now, that's not necessarily so. If your limit is, if you cannot remain sober and drink alcohol, then you should not drink at all. But if you can, if you know your limit, then you can drink, but know your limit and remain at it. It's the same with every vice. Sometimes the limit is no, you cannot have it at all. And other times it is in moderate and depending on the human being. And at times you also must follow the law. You have to shift because of it. It benefits you with maintaining a sharper mind. As if you remain sober and remain vigilant, you can think about heavier and more important priorities. You must not let vice and other pleasures take over your life. It will benefit you later in family life, as if you maintain a temperate manner, staying away from drunkenness and other such things. It can keep your marriage intact. There are many other virtues that must be practiced, but this is one of them. Charity. Charity must be practiced. It's very important, but it's sometimes overstated. It must be practiced with temperance, meaning you have to temper how much you give. With prudence, because you have to be careful in what charity you go to. With kindness, because you have to make sure that you're actually benefiting people and not being detrimental to them. You have to practice with fortitude, because sometimes you have to say no to some charities. You have to be just in your charity, and that you have to be fair to the charity and yourself. In other words, you have to make sure that you can still maintain your family and yourself, keeping yourself healthy. You don't want to starve to death because you gave money. You gave all your money away. Now, this is not to say that you can't do that, but you have to be prudent. You have to root it in justice and the moral law, because you do not want to donate to, say, abortion mills. That would be evil, because it is murder. You do not want to donate it to a group that's going to kill people, that goes out to murder people. It's wrong. Or theft. Diligence is essential because you must work in school and in life. Charity is important too in school and life, because it is a part of the way you live during your personal life in school. Diligence is important because it is essential to success. You have to work hard. You have to also work prudently, such as obeying proper safety regulations, such as when you are working with welding. You put on a welding mask to protect your eyes from getting shock, getting arc flash. You must be diligent in your work, because that is the best way to get it done. You have to be disciplined, tempered, because in your diligence, you cannot be overzealous to the point where you become a workaholic. You have to be honest, because it would be wrong to lie and cheat your way to get your job done. Patience. Diligence requires patience and prudence. It takes time to finish tasks sometimes, so do them carefully with patience. Finishing tasks diligently means not rushing through them patiently. Patience for safe driving and safety is very important. Patience in listening to others, because while you want to argue and they may bring up a point, they may be just playing devil's advocate and pointing out why that argument is wrong. Do not react so quickly. Let them finish their thought. Another important part of patience requires, such as I return to the COVID lockdowns. Oh, I wish to get these lockdowns ended. I wish them to be ended tomorrow. Not because I haven't been patient. We've been overly patient. They said 15 days to slow the spread, not 15 months. And it's December. They said that in March. I've been patient enough. It is time that we state what we wish. We want, because we are a political society that has the voice of average people, we need to return to normal, because it would be wrong. It is wrong and unjust to continue to lock down people because of a disease that is very strong and very deadly. I will never not acknowledge that. But it is not the plague and death and angel of death that people state it is. Kindness. Treat your man with basic kindness. This does not always entail just being nice, because sometimes that will mean lying. Sometimes being kind means being truthful, and that requires fortitude. It entails all virtues. You have to be kind but not naive. Just because you have to be nice to you being nice, just because being kind does not mean that you have to be nice to everybody. It means you have to be kind to them in what's best for them. You have to remember the universal morality in your kindness. Humility. This is one of the most important virtues that we have forgotten in our society today. Today we have Pride Month and Pride parades. This is terrible. This is awful. You require humility to learn, because you need to be able to learn from your ancestors, from your teachers, and from your forefathers and your parents. Your parents and family come before your teachers. And you have to learn the deeper questions, which requires humility to understand that there are things that we cannot explain in this world that are of material being, because we have thought, we have souls. This requires that you require humility in a society and in life. If you do not have humility, you will not have a good life. Because if you are so bullheaded that you will not think about things, and that you will not admit you are wrong, or be willing to submit to better thought, and to understand that you are not standing on the shoulder of giants, but you are not flying, but standing on the shoulders of giants, as Michael Knowles would state. You have to remember that if you don't, you will eventually destroy yourself into hedonism. The final conclusion is the virtues are essential for college life and after. You have to ground yourself to a standard essential in a changing world. The virtues must be balanced. If you have too much charity and you're just giving money all the time, that would lack prudence, and it would lack kindness, because you may be giving money and subsidizing the idea of continuing their own vices without any help of them. That would not be kind, and it would not be charitable. You have to be chaste, but you also have to remember that there is important things. You have to be chaste. You have to be humble. You have to have all of the virtues entailed, and they will aid in your discipline, because you must have discipline to practice these virtues, and you must practice these virtues because they work, and they've worked for thousands of years. They're rooted in the traditions of cultures across time and history, and particularly the West, in Western civilization. Thank you very much. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.